Well, welcome everyone. I hope you enjoyed the first session earlier, and I'm excited to present the next session. And so once again, my name is Natalie Coleman, and I work in VSU, College of Education and Human Services, in the Office of Professional Education Services. And I'm also joined here with my colleague, Melissa Nolly. She also works in the same office. And she'll be presenting the drawings at the end of the session. And then also I wanted to let you know that we are recording this presentation and that there are some features and Zoom that we'd like to make you aware of. There is a chat feature that you can post some comments and questions, and the presenters, Danielle and Jonathan, would like you to use the chat. They want to see, they want you interacting and asking questions, definitely, and you can also speak if you'd like. Just maybe raise your hand if you have a question or anything like that, and we'll unmute you so that you can talk. And also, we are so grateful for you attending this presentation, and be sure to stay afterwards for the drawings like I mentioned. And so finally, I want to introduce the two presenters for their presentation called Engaging Students with Openers and Closers. And so Danielle Rucker, she is going into her 10th year of teaching. She taught 5 years in her hometown of Madison, Florida, before becoming part of the Viking family. And that's here in Lowndes County. She teaches 4th grade reading and writing at Cliveville Elementary School. She is the current team leader and is also the co-coordinator for her school's Community Partner in Education program. Danielle is currently working on obtaining her master's degree in education, or excuse me, in elementary education. And Jonathan Tomberlin is going into his 3rd year of teaching, and he has taught at Cliveville Elementary for each of these 3 years in both traditional and virtual classrooms. His experience has also ranged from 4th grade to 3rd and now back to 4th, teaching the subjects of math, science, and social studies. He is currently working on obtaining his master's degree in instructional technology. So I'm excited to present Danielle and Jonathan for their presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Jonathan and I are so excited to be with you this morning, and we've got some information on openers and closures that we would like to share with you. If you have notebook paper or something that you want to write down some notes with, I would suggest that you do that. There will be a lot of information. We are going to share the presentation with you afterwards, so don't feel like you have to write everything down. You'll get it, and then you'll also get the recording. I want to begin with going over the 3 sections that we will talk about today. So first, we're going to have a little introduction, and we're going to talk about what the openers and closers actually are. And then we'll move into some examples of openers and closers in those blank formats. And then I also have got some pictures of things that Jonathan and I have used in our classroom that have worked. And then last, we will talk about uses and formats. Before we begin, I do want to give you a brief, quick rundown of openers and closers and why we use them. For years, I know like in education, we would just kind of open with a lesson and just maybe go directly into teaching or directly into a skill that we wanted our students to learn. But we never did like a quick activity to engage our students. And then at the end, you may say, oh my goodness, it's time to go. Let's go ahead and clean up and get ready for the next subject or get ready for the next class. And the closer is actually giving you a time to close the lesson. It's that 15% of your instructional minutes with that group of students who you want to make sure that they, 1, understood the points that you were teaching that day, and 2, that if they have any questions, you're ready to address them tomorrow. So we're going to start. Mr. Tomberlin's going to take over and give us some definitions.
All right, so what are openers and closers? Like she said, these are just a way for us to engage students at the very beginning and at the very end of a lesson. Grab your student's attention, introduce or review a topic there with the opener. And as their name suggests, an opener is at the opening of the lesson and a closer is at the end of the lesson. And so we just use these to really try and develop lessons in such a manner that we grab their attention at the beginning and they are able to learn throughout the lesson. So what we mean by that is, of course, by using openers and closers, and you'll see through these various formats, they look a lot different. There are many different activities you use for an opener and closer. and using those again to engage students. That's the biggest part of the reason behind these. And research shows that they help students retain information they may not otherwise remember, because if you grab their attention in those first few moments and give them information while they're most engaged, they're able to retain that. So it's a great way to open a lesson, to introduce a topic, as well as close it out and review with them to make sure that they know what they're going to learn from day to day, as well as hopefully retain more of that information. And a lot of this framework that we use here with Lowndes County Schools, with an opening instructional section, work session, and closers, they kind of come from a framework adapted from Teaching in the Fast Lane, which is a book we went over as a district, and a good resource that would help you understand where a lot of this information is coming from as well. All right, so I'm gonna hand it back over to Ms. Rucker here with some general ideas and templates that she herself uses.
Okay, moving on. So again, the openers and closers, these kind of go hand in hand. Sometimes we use these activities to open the lesson, and then you can use the same activity, a different activity to end the lesson. We might use them, just kind of change them up, and depending on the skill, depending on the time, depending on the activity, you might want to use one that's a piece of technology for an opener or closer to give you some great data. You know, if you're forming groups, you need data quick, you need it right then. You know, that quiz is a great way to just, the good thing about quizzes, what I personally love, is that you can browse any type of skills. If you're working on a science skill, you can type like a subject area there, and there are teachers and other people that have made up just a caboodle of quizzes that are ready for you to use. It's free, you don't have to pay for them. And as the students move through, you'll see, and I'll present it later, how the data will look. A few of them that I like to use are the red light, green light. It's great for yes or no questions. The thumbs up, thumbs down, again, great for yes or no questions, true or false, do they agree, do they disagree. Study Island, I know multiple districts around the South Georgia area use Study Island, and it is a fabulous way to review science, social studies, reading, and math skills. And then Kahoot. Kahoot has been around for a long time. We've used it in trainings. We use it in our classroom. So we're going to go ahead and break these down one at a time, and we're going to discuss each one a little more in depth so that you have a firm grasp of understanding of what each one looks like and when you may use it. So the very first one is red light, green light. And if you have any, before we move forward, the chat box is open. So please, 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 if you have a question, put it there and we'll get to it as soon as we can. The red light, green light. This is very, very simple. I literally took like a piece of brown construction paper, cut it into fours. On one side, you just put a red circle. On the other side, you put a green circle. And I call it red light, green light. It is great whenever we're doing yes or no questions. Yes, you may have the occasional student who looks around at their partner or their group of students that are sitting around them to kind of see what they've done if they're unsure. But you as an educator, you know that child, and you know that if they're unsure, you see them looking around and wondering, okay, what does everybody else have? What do I need to put my card on? But if you're standing at the front of the room, you know that if they turn the green light, that they're good. If they turn the red light, that maybe it was false, or maybe they disagreed with something, or the answer was no. The red light, green light cards are super, super simple to make. After I made them, I did have them laminated just so they would last a little bit longer. And then we also use these when working with groups and partners. A lot of times, the camera's off. Oops, sorry. A lot of times we use that red light, green light whenever they're working with a group or a partner. So I'll give everybody the card. And then if they're working with a partner, or maybe they're reading a passage, their card stays on red. So if you'll just envision like everybody sitting in the room, reading their passage, everybody's card is on red, but they're going to answer the question part together, or maybe they're going to discuss the passage together, or maybe they're going to complete a graphical organizer together. After they finish reading, that student's going to flip their card over to green. It means they're ready. So then whenever their partner or small group gets ready, they're going to be flipping theirs to green. And whenever the students notice that their partners or everybody in their group is on green, then that group's ready to work together. It's a great way to not rush the kids. They know that everybody is reading at a different pace. Some students are reading really fast. Some students are reading really slow. Some students may need help with a word. And that, again, is a great way, like I say, if you're using it for independent work, to have it on red. And then if they need assistance, they can leave it on red. If they're good, they can leave it on green. Just a variety of ways that you can use that red light, green light. It's great for younger students, younger elementary students. I teach 4th grade and I do use it sometimes. The kids love it because it's very simple. I mean, we all know that when we think red, we're like, whoa. When we think green, we're like, go. So they just kind of know the whoa and go. They can relate to those colors, and it's pretty simple for them. The next example is thumbs up, thumbs down. This is great whenever we're going through a quick series of questions. So at the beginning of a unit, kind of maybe getting some background knowledge, seeing where the kids are at. A lot of times for like parts of speech at the beginning of the year, we do this. And we'll show like a part of speech, and then we may say a word, or we may say a phrase. And then we want them to say, yes, it's used in, that part of speech, or no, it's not. The thumbs up, thumbs down is a very simple way to say yes, to say no. Yes, I agree. No, I do not. The answer is true. The answer is false. It costs no money to make. You don't have to print anything. You can do it on the fly. It's just very, very simple. The thing about thumbs up, thumbs down, you're going to have kids that are doing this, looking to see what their buddies are doing. That's okay. Again, you as an educator, you're going to know that if you see your baby looking around, then they're unsure, that you know that you have to address them. And that's okay. We know that there's not going to be 100% of mastery every single day. That's okay. But the thumbs up, thumbs down, again, it's very simple. It's very quick, and the kids love it. Moving forward, we have Study Island. So Study Island is one of my favorite go-tos. I used Study Island for a whole year before I even knew anything about the challenge, the race, and the checkpoints. The openers and closers, whenever we discuss them, like the opener is 10% of our time. 10%, I have 40 minutes in a writing block, 40 minutes in a reading block. That's not long at all. And especially when you have to factor in, you got to say 15% of that time for a closer. So a lot of times for Study Island, if we're studying the main idea skill, I'll have them log into their Study Island, and then as an opener, maybe complete the flashcards with a partner. The flashcards will come up after they click on that skill lesson, and you'll have your flashcards. It'll say a practice or a group session, all this good stuff. And then at the end of the lesson, they love the challenge and the race. And I'll tell you why. These kiddos love competition. They love to feel like they are going to beat their friend. And the Study Island challenge and race absolutely puts them into the game position where they feel like they're trying to beat the other person. The good thing about the challenge and the race is that you can select whatever standard you're teaching. So whenever you go to create your group session, you can create it on main idea. You can create it on parts of speech. If you're doing adding and subtracting numbers, if you're doing parts of a plant, whatever you're doing, if there is a Study Island lesson on it, you can create the group session on it, which is so fun. So after you click on it, you're going to click on group session, go into your challenge or race, whichever one you decide on. Race is probably one that we use most often because it kind of the whole time the kids are kind of like knocking each other out of first place. So you'll see like their names, they have like these ghost names. So it might be like red desk number 2, whatever. And so red desk number 2, the kids know what their name is, but nobody else does. And so then it might be like, oh gosh, I don't know, like a silly name, like blue shirt. Blue shirt might come up here if he answers the question quicker and more incorrectly. And so the whole time, the kids are constantly trying to beat out the other person. Again, it puts them in a game. They're learning without even realizing it, and it's giving you feedback. It's telling you exactly what skill they mastered and the percentage of mastery that each student got. Also, the challenge and race, in addition to allowing you to pick the skill, say you're doing a review. Well, I know we have done this multiple times. Like if we're doing like a unit review or before a common assessment, we'll gather all the standards that we know are going to be presented on that assessment. We'll create a study island group session using the challenge or the race, and we will select multiple standards to include in it. And here's the great thing. Not only can you select the standard, you also can pick how many questions for each one you get. Then it will allow you to pick the questions, or they'll automatically pick them for you. Obviously, it's great whenever they can pick them for you. You don't have to do it. You just know that they're going to be standards based, and there's going to be 15 or 17 questions, however many you decide on. And whenever you go to launch it, it's going to be there. After the fact, it will show you data. It'll break it down into standard. Some kids may master 2 or 3 standards. And so then you know exactly what skill or review group they need to go into before that assessment that's coming. So those are 2 very good ways to use Study Island. With our school, Study Island is pretty big. We use it for the blue ribbons. And then toward the end of the year, the students start earning rewards from our academic coach based on the number of blue ribbons earned. I know this year our 4th graders did very good at math. For 5th graders had a great success at multiple subject areas. And the kids just love getting those blue ribbons. They love being on top. They enjoy the competition part of it. So that's how we use Study Island. Moving forward to quizzes. You'll hear me talk about quizzes and Kahoot together. I was introduced to quizzes about probably 3 years ago. And whenever you first get to looking at it, it can be overwhelming because there is so much information. But again, quizzes, if you'll see this little search bar right here, this search bar will allow you to put in standard. It will allow you to put in a skill. It will allow you to put in a phrase, and it's going to bring up quizzes that are ready and prepared, and you didn't have to do anything to them except assign them. And I'm going to tell you a few ways that we use this. Whenever we have been working on a skill and we need quick data, a lot of times for an opener, I'll do a quizzes just to see what type of information they retained. If they're working at 80% or higher, then we'll send them to an enrichment activity. If they're working below 80%, we know that we're going to remediate with them. And quizzes has a fabulous way of presenting their data. So if you can see on the picture on the left, this is exactly what it will look like whenever you go to assign it. So you can start a live quiz, which is what we do a lot for the openers. As soon as they come in, I'll tell everybody, all right, for our opener today, we're going to use the quizzes. Go ahead and log up, and you'll have a code. So every student will have a code on the board. They'll use that code. And then as the students come in, you'll see. So if you know that you have 19 students, you're going to be looking for 19 students to be ready on that quizzes screen. Then you can launch it, start it, and everybody starts working. The picture on the right will show you how the students will progress through the quizzes. So the green bar at the very top with the number in the middle, this is great because every time a question is answered correctly within your classroom, you're going to hear like a little positive sound. It's like a ding, 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 or like a little chart, like a little doorbell type thing, like a chime. And so those 2 sounds will tell them either they're getting the question right or they're getting the question wrong. It's very interesting to hear all the sounds in the classroom because a lot of times you hear a chime, 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 and then you hear like a ding, and everybody's like looking around. But they know that, they know if they got it right or wrong also on their computer. The percentage in the middle is your class average. That number will tell you the number of questions that are being answered correctly within your classroom at that given time. Now with me, I have 3 different class periods. So obviously I would create this and put it in each different class so that I would have 3 different groups of data. After the fact, these right below it, the green bars you can see right above the little friends here, those are individual student progress. So it's going to show you if little Johnny is missing 10 questions, he's going to have a lot of red in that beginning. If Susie has gotten all of her questions right, it's going to show you that she's at 100% proficiency right now on that quiz is. And if she gets one wrong, then you'll see the little red line come up. But basically, again, that green and red, it's going to show you percentage. So the quizzes is great for an opener. It's very quick. It gives you immediate feedback, and the questions appear on the student screen. I know for us, we have smart boards, and we're getting view boards next year, and we're so excited because our smart boards are almost outdated and they're very dim. So it was very hard sometimes for us to use a Kahoot, because I would just have to end up reading the questions, and then some kids would be answering before everybody heard the question, and it was just kind of a mess. And then Quizzes takes all that away from you. They can see the questions on their screen. They can see the answer choices on their screen. They can see their progress. Everything is right there on their screen. And then you can just have the data pulled up. So it's a great way to use that. And I'll also tell you this. For my SPED students, we have made copies before of our quizzes. So whenever you're logged into your teacher account, which I suggest you all go ahead and make and browse around because you're going to want it for next year. Once you get in, you can make copies of quizzes that people have already created. So it doesn't have to be your own personal quiz for you to make a copy of it. But you can make a copy. Say you need to give them reduced answer choices. Maybe you only want your SPED kids to answer 3 questions instead of 8. However you need to differentiate that quiz, you're able to do that with Quizzes just by making a copy and then editing the quiz to make it look however you want to, which is great. It's fabulous because then everybody is working at their ability. You've got your accommodations there, and everybody is going to be giving you some type of data. So again, you can use it on any topic. It's great data. You can group your students, within minutes, and the questions appear on their screen. Before we move on, I also want to say right here, the other purple button on the right where it says assign homework. If you know that you want them to do this as like a closer, the great way to do it for a closer is having it assigned as homework. Now, it's not necessarily homework, but then you can put it in Google Classroom. So whenever you click that button, it's going to allow you to put it in more than one classroom if you need to. And it's also going to give you as much data per classes if you need to. For me, I assign it to all 3 classes, and then my data is grouped into 3 different groups. And it is just great to have it ready. And then whenever, if we have to stop and we say, okay, we've got 7 minutes to do our closer, we're going to do a quizzes, we're going to see what everybody knows, and we're going to move on from that. So we've got a few questions. Do you have to upgrade to get the teacher data? No, I'm telling you, you're going to love it. You do not have to upgrade to get the teacher data, but I will say this past school year, they created something called live lessons, and the live lessons are even better. And they've got some that are free, some you have to pay for. I haven't paid for anything yet. I only used the free version, but the live lessons, well, whenever you pull them up, it'll ask you like 3 or 4 review questions or give you like review data, review information, and then it'll give them a countdown to go into the questions. So the live lesson will allow you to review some content before moving into the question. Do you allow the students to see the correct answer to the question? It will tell them that, Michael, whenever they answer that question incorrectly or wrong, it'll automatically tell them if they got it wrong, it'll show them the correct answer. And the good thing about quizzes is they have like these little memes and emojis after each question that will, 1, encourage them to do better, or 2, like give them like some, like you go, or it'll say like, oh, you killed that question, or rock on. So it encourages them the whole time. The data, we have used it for grades before. just because, Adrian, it's standards based, it is a good way. Like if you're wanting to get a quick daily grade, I know me and my other team leader, we have created and edited and maybe add a few questions for us to do like an exit ticket on like quick grammar. Punctuation is great because they'll have the sentences and then they're like all different punctuation. They have to choose the correct one. Recently, toward the end of the year, we did a review on commas and quotation marks. And that's so difficult for some students because they're like, well, do I put the comma first? They just get confused, and especially if they don't use it every day. And we just compiled, we went through our grammar standards and we looked up and typed in like a review, and there was a review test on like 7 or 8 of our grammar standards. And it was like, it had the substandards in there. It was awesome. And it was great data. So yes, we did use that for a daily grade. All right, moving on to my last one, and it is Kahoot. We have all heard about Kahoot. I love Kahoot. Like I said, the only bad thing I have to say about it is that the students cannot see the questions on their own personal screen. So that is the only advantage really that Quizzes has, besides it has great data, that Kahoot does not. Kahoot though, they have great music and it gets the kids engaged. It kind of wakes them up. So using it to open your lesson and get them ready is great. You can use it at the end, whatever you need, whatever really you need. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. Having the questions on their screen is a game changer. And I'll tell you why, especially with this past year, we had a social distance. And in my classroom, I mean, we had children, they were literally sitting almost to the back counter. And honestly, it was very hard to read that screen. So having the questions on their screen, but then the answer choices, I would stand there and read the answer choices for them. But again, Kahoot's great. They have great music. It just gets them engaged. They love it. Let's see. We have he doesn't have it. All right. One really cool feature. All right, very good. So we've got those questions answered. All right, does anybody else have any questions? Yes, I agree, Amy. It says one drawback to Kahoot compared to Quizzes is that the students who process more slowly can get frustrated. Yes, I agree because, and I'll say this, I know for me, I do teach some SPED students and some ESOL students, and they need help with like the vocabulary part of it. And so, yes, we have had to like kind of explain the question, and then like it may say they're waiting on one response or everybody's moved forward, and then they're done. So yes, I agree with that. But again, it is an option. At the holidays, you can even look up and they'll have like themed Kahoots, and that's a fun one because then they don't feel like they're being pressured to get something necessarily right or wrong that's standards based, but it's just fun to like be engaged. So those are all very good questions and very good answers. All right, so now we are going to move forward. Mr. Tomberlin has got some very good ideas also, so I'm going to turn it over to him.
All right. So I do have a few other ideas for us as well. And just a quick note from both of us, a lot of this is used within our, I guess, technology uses here in our classrooms in Lowndes counties, and those may be different from district to district. But all of these ideas can be adapted to any classroom management software. For example, if you're not using Google Classroom, but something else, they're all adaptable and they're all able to be used in that way as well. I did just want to add that quick note because I know y'all may hear some of these and think like, well, we don't use that, but they can be done in that way. Right.
And Adrian, do you still have a question that you want to mention? I've unmuted you.
No, I'm fine. Thank you. It was answered during the process. I went, just reflected on something. So I'm good. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right. Awesome. So the few I have listed here that I've used in my classroom and Rucker has as well, and many here at the school have factor fibs, which are true or false questions. And we use these generally to get students up and moving. I'll go into more detail with these as well. 3-2-1s, which are like exit tickets with a little more detail, great for review for closers. 4 corners check, which are reviewing questions with students who then walk to one corner or another to answer those. Entry and exit tickets, classic that we've all used or at least heard about or had in school at one point or another. Matches and sorts, and sticky note posting. So I'm going to go through and give us a little bit more detail on each of these. Also, we do plan on sending this presentation to Natalie to send out to all of you. And anywhere you see these underlines, many of these are linked to blank templates that are available to you. So what you see on screen in some way, shape, or form, you'll have a template that you can use and adapt to your classroom as well. When you go to use those, if you will, just they're through Google Docs, go up to File and make a copy, and then they're just available for you to use. All of these are ones we've used ourselves and adapted. They're our own templates, so we're able to share those freely. That being said, a factor fib, again, asking true or false questions, getting students up and moving, as well as often giving evidence to support their answer. So I know I've often used this more so for a closer, although it is great for an opening, because if they have no idea what you're talking about that day and you're asking them to do factor fib, well, they don't know. And so it's a great way to be like, okay, so we don't know this, let's talk about this as we move into a lesson. But from the review standpoint, asking these true or false questions, and sometimes even throwing in some trickier questions that may go either way and having students have to support their answer based off of what they say. A few notes about this one. We've done this in multiple formats. Sometimes just asking students to write it on a whiteboard and hold it up. Asking students to raise their left hand for fact, their right hand for fib, gives you a quick visual check on how they're understanding a lesson. You also we've had them move to different sides of the room, like the entire left side of the room, different right side of the room. And of course, like we said with some of our other openers and closers, they're going to look around at other students. Some might hold back and wait till a majority of the room is moved. But you can use that to your advantage as an educator to see how well they might understand a topic, as well as just in general, sometimes to even see who your leaders and followers are. It gives you a good way to check your classroom dynamics, as well as actually checking their understanding of information. Up next, we have a 3-2-1. And again, I call this personally an exit ticket with more details, because typically I would use this as a closer. And so you go through and review information that you've covered in the lesson, and it requires a little bit more of the students, because typically on the first one, they give 3 answers. The second one, they give 2 answers. And on the final one, they give 1 answer. And so this allows you to get a good check on multiple points of information, as well as to get a deeper knowledge of understanding from students, like how well do they understand a topic, and really dive into that a little bit more. And as with all of our openers and closures, they are great for data, both at even the beginning and at the end of a lesson, to see maybe what they retained from the day before or what they retained from that current lesson. So the example I have here is for a math standard of time in 3rd grade, which I taught last year. And so 3 was give the time for each clock, 3 clocks, 3 answers. 2, what are the 2 types of time, AM, PM, and what is 1 question you still have about time? So that last question I will often leave more open-ended like that, especially in this case, to gain an understanding of what students maybe want to know more about, to lean into their interest. Sometimes it leads to interesting answers, and some of them say, well, I don't want to learn anything about time because I think I know it all. And so it also gives you a good way to survey students, which is very important, just to gain an understanding of how they feel about what they know. So 3-2-1 is a great one. It's a classic that's been used a while, and we've just adapted to a digital format, as well as to fit this framework of having openers and closers as well. Following this, you have 4 corners checks. And again, this one, along with factor fib and their movement aspect, we've really enjoyed using these, because that does tend to engage students a little more, especially since a lot of the times they can end up sitting a lot of the day. We have used more technological resources, especially this past year, and this just really gives students an opportunity to get up and moving, and it gives us as teachers a quick visual understanding of what they know. And so it's just a great dual kind of use there. And so a 4 corners check is essentially we place review questions either on the whiteboard, smartboard, whatever may be available. And so we post those up there with answers. And so, you know, like, what is 2 plus 2? Is it A, 4, B, 3, C, 2, A, 1? And so each corner of the room, assuming you have 4 corners, is labeled with one of those answer options, A, B, C, or D. And so you post that question to the board, and then they move to one of those corners. And so you'll see very quickly which students know the answer and don't, or even if you ask more open-ended questions, how students feel about certain topics. Again, it's great for survey, for closing, for gaining that data, because data drives instructions moving forward. So it's great to have these through these openers and closers. And again, that movement aspect just really gets them up and engaged and just interacting with the material in ways they don't think about necessarily as learning, because they tend to have a little more fun. And so that fun aspect to them keeps them going and helps us gain data about what they actually understand. All right, up next, of course, the classic entry and exit tickets. And so sometimes these are great openers as an entry ticket, and they're great closers as an exit ticket. And so these might be a sheet of paper, might be a question we ask on the board, have them write on the whiteboard and show us. Really come in a lot of different formats. And so a lot of what I know we will do, sometimes we will literally use them as tickets, like you can't enter the room until you answer this question and come in, because they immediately have to interact. They're immediately engaged in the material before they even step foot in the classroom sometimes. And again, that same idea before they leave. Answer this question, it's your ticket out the door. But both of these are great ways to assess learning from the day before with an entry ticket, or even again that day with an exit ticket. So in this example, you see where you might highlight the preposition in each sentence. We use them in math, often circling answers, just having A, B, C, or D, and having multiple choice, having them draw out a concept, create something as an exit ticket, or even in general, just having them write something down to gain knowledge of their understanding. And again, these are a great way to interact with them in such a way that we get them before they come in the door and right as they're exiting the classroom. But also, this being said, I have used these for projects, and I call them clock in and clock out, because as we know as adults, to begin working, you have to clock in, and to finish working, you have to clock out. That way that time is documented and understood. And so I've used these even with projects to make sure that students understand that I'm clocking in, I'm showing that I know what we're talking about, I know what we're doing today, and I can get started, as well as, all right, we've wrapped up. Let me show you what I've learned today. I'm going to clock out. And so overall, these are classics, great openers and closers to use with the entry and exit tickets. All right, another great is matches and sorts. And I use these a lot this past year, especially virtually with my virtual students using Jamboard, which is another service by Google. And so having a definition and a word, having them have to match those up, having a math problem and an answer, having those match those up. These matches and sorts have been used in a lot of different ways and are really a great way to tie in concepts that they need to understand. And again, it gives us a good visual reference and just a quick check. That's really what a lot of these openers and closers do for us as educators. Is just this gives us a good reference point to understand and see the needs of our students. I've also used this match and sort to check in on students to see how they're doing. Maybe I'll ask, how do you feel about this topic? Maybe we talked about perimeter that week. How did you feel about perimeter? I have a smiley face, a straight face, and a frowny face, and they move their name with one of these sticky notes into each category just to check their own understanding, kind of give them a little bit of responsibility and telling me how they feel about the lesson and what they understand. And that also allows me to help drive and inform my group making decisions. So matches and sorts are another great opener or closer as well. And this final one is we call sticky note posting, at least I do, because you literally take a sticky note and you post it on the board. So what we have students do is we will ask, again, question, survey. A lot of this is questioning. That way students are providing an answer and we get data and they get an engaging activity. This one as well gets them up and moving. So hand every student a sticky note, go around the classroom and usually ask one general question. I've even used the sticky note for 3-2-1s and had them post them on the board. You can have them post a sticky note with their name on it into certain categories of maybe what they think the answer is, having that on the board. There are a lot of different ways to do this, but handing them a sticky note, having them write an answer, having them write something down on that sticky note and be able to post that throughout the classroom, it gives you a good visual reference to look back on if you need to, and it gives them a good way to get up and moving and being able to answer those questions as well. And again, with all of these openers and closers, the whole point of what we're trying to do is engage students. And again, we catch them when they are most attentive, right before we start a lesson and right after we finish one. Now, of course, they should be learning somewhere in the middle, but this is where we really want to catch them with information. And it also gives us good data to drive our instruction as we move forward. So that being said, we also have a few ways to implement these with different technology resources. Some of these we've already talked about, and a few I'm going to discuss just in general. Just ways to make these templates if you want to create your own, and different places to use some of these openers and closers. So obviously we have some already mentioned: Quizzes, Kahoot, and Study Island. Those are technological resources that we already have mentioned throughout this. There are a couple of others. GimKit kind of took off at our school. It's another quiz-driven game, good competition, as well as Book It, which allows them to choose a character and allows them to race. And there's actually a lot of different game modes with Book It. And with all of these quiz-driven games, I think the big important focus on all of these is not the fact that we're doing quiz-driven, there's competition. That is true, that does engage students. But the reason there are so many is because that way you engage students every time. Because after a while, students get bored with Kahoot. After a while, they get bored with GimKit. And so just having a variety of these different resources and different quiz-driven games and being able to change those from lesson to lesson really helps drive their attention, because they're like, oh, not Kahoot again, or oh, not quizzes again. And we as teachers still get very similar data from all of these. So it's great just to have those different resources. And many of the templates and stuff you will see, I mentioned Google Suite here because they are the Google Suite, Google Slides, Google Docs, Google Sheets, all Google Forms, especially, all great at creating a lot of these templates and being able to use those within a classroom. And if you're not a part of the Google Suite, if you use Microsoft Office at your district or even personally, also great at creating and using a lot of the templates that you've seen here.
Okay, so we are going to start a 10-minute countdown timer for some question and answers. Please, please, please feel free to use the chat box, the Q&A box, and we'll review them. Mr. Tomlin, will you start that, please? Thank you. Like I said, again, please feel free to use them. We are here to answer any questions. We want you to be able to use these when you leave. So if you have questions, please feel free to answer now. Natalie, if somebody wants to raise their hand and speak, that's totally fine also. Does your district buy GimKit for you?
Our district did purchase, well, not our district, but our school did purchase the subscription for GimKit. I had forgotten that that was a thing. I think there are some free features included with it for a certain period of time, but our school did acquire funds from the district to be able to do that through various means. But yes, we do have that functionality of it as well.
Yes, and Amy, I was gonna say that same thing is after for the free subscription, it does limit you to the number of players, and so that is one thing. But again, talk to your district, talk to your schools. There may be funds for it. If not, you know, there are many other options that are just as good and that keep the kids engaged. What is the best type of openers for learners, particularly those who need lots of visual support? Okay, Adrian, I am so glad that you asked this question because I teach a group of ESOL students within one of my class periods. And one of the biggest things for us whenever we're teaching them vocabulary is having a visual. If I tell you that this is a chair, I need to be able to show you that this is a chair. We have oftentimes take it for granted whenever we do reading passes that the kids just know certain words, and they truly don't. One example this year was we were doing like a passage about a birthday, and the kids had brought all these great things. And one of our students was like, "What is a cupcake? Like a cup with a cake?" Like they were just so confused whenever we were talking about the word cupcake, and we're like, "You've never seen like a cupcake?" And then when she's seen it, she's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I've seen that before." So having pictures attached to like my task cards and stuff that I put in are great. The good thing about like Kahoot a lot of times is that the picture related to the question will show. Same thing for quizzes. You can insert pictures. Whenever you, let me go back. The factor fib that I entered, I'm going to click on it. I don't know if y'all can see it. The factor fib, I always make those in Google Slides, and those are great because you can insert pictures also with those. We do these things called cold read comprehension. I'm sure you've heard about it. It comes with the Journeys curriculum, and we start at a certain lexile and stop at a certain lexile. And for every one, we do a time reading fluency. And this is not an opener or closer, but during our lesson, before the kids answer the questions, I create a Google slide to like show them pictures of vocabulary words that I think they may not know. So like I said, always inserting pictures based on the questions. You can do that with multiple of these programs. And I encourage you, because honestly, there are going to be times whenever you have certain children sitting in your room and they're not going to know what it is. This year we did one about one of the wars, and they had not knew like a certain vocabulary from there. And I'm not going to go through that whole list of vocabulary words, but anyways, I just created basically like the flashcards in Google Slides, and as the opener, they had to go through that list of vocabulary. It had a picture, it had the vocabulary, like the definition, and a sentence. So that was great. When you say
also with the types of openers for learners who need lots of visual support, I mean, even sometimes we will use videos from like Brain Pop or YouTube that relate to the topic, especially in science, social studies. I know that's one I used a lot, just to give a quick grab their attention. We also use vocabulary, and all of these are things, just quick visual references is on top of those other things. And Rhonda there, when we say they see these things on their own screen, our district has provided Chromebooks to our students. And so depending on your district, that may not necessarily be the case. But if they have certain devices, they can bring those in. Maybe you have a class set of even desktops to run some of these openers and closures in smaller groups. Those also work. But when we say they see things on their own screens, we're talking about devices that they have within the school, and within our district, that is Chromebooks.
And for example, the type of thing that they may see, like for quizzes, they're going to see the question and answer choices. And for quizzes, they're going to see the questions. And then they're going to see blocks of color where they would be clicking on the answer choices, but they may not see the question on their screen. So different programs show different things. Everything has pros and cons, and you just have to use whatever you feel is best. And if you're working with a small group and they can see the board fine, then you know what, Kahoot may be a great option. If you were working with, like I did, with a group of 21 people in the room and they're spread out everywhere, then Kahoot was not always the best option for me, because I wanted my kiddos to be able to see it like without any question. So yes, everything has a pros and a con, and you just have to really fill out what works best for you. The Quizlet we both have used in the past. There's really not a reason that we prefer one over another. Quizzes is just great. We've come to love quizzes just because of the multitude of quizzes that are already created based on our standards. We are very big on teaching our standards and making sure that all of our activities align to the standards, so that we know that the kids are learning the material that they are required to learn by our state. With that being said, quiz has just become one of those things that we feel comfortable with. It's great for data, and it's quick and easy. So it's just one of those things that we use.
And also in that same vein, there's not necessarily, like she said, not necessarily advantages of one over the other. Again, they just give you, having multiple resources gives you a great way to engage students more when they possibly get used to one of the others. So that being said, Blookit is very similar to Gimkit, Quizzes, Kahoot, in that it is a quiz style game. However, it gives you multiple mini games within it. And so instead of just being like a race for students trying to get the most points, maybe they're answering questions and it gives them a character for a factory and they earn more money. It just provides a different way to do that quiz environment in that format. And Michael, I know I haven't used Quizlet Live. I actually didn't realize Quizlet had a live version. So thank you for that information. And I'm not sure if Ms. Rucker has or not.
I have
herself.
not done the Quizlet Live. I have done the quizzes. The quizzes live is pretty new. Again, there are some of the ones they call them, I think, please don't quote me on this one, but I think it's called Superpower maybe. That's the one where you actually have to like pay to upgrade your account. There are plenty of free quizzes available. The live, again, just a quick recap, is basically reviewing content before the questions start. So if you're reviewing summarizing, it's going to ask you and give you details on summarizing. It's going to maybe pose like a question for a group discussion, and then it's going to take the kids into the quizzes questions, which is what's going to produce your data. Any type of practice questions that are going to be during that live are not going to count as their data.
And also real quick with those in the chat, Michael, in case we didn't answer your question earlier, I would say allowing students to see the correct answer or not, because I know that's an option with a lot of our quiz games, following the immediate answer of a question. I think it really depends on what you're wanting to get out of it, because I know I've used some of these quiz games for students to do independently. And when I'm allowing them to work independently, I would traditionally allow them to see the correct answer. That way, when they see the question again in the future, they're able to do it, because that tends to be more of a review. But if I'm looking for more data collection from students, then I usually don't allow them to see that question being correct or incorrect. I don't allow them to see the correct answer, just from the standpoint of I want to see what they know. And if that question is to come up again, even within that same quiz, because sometimes they do, depending on the type you use, I don't want them to be able to just answer that question because they saw it earlier in the quiz. And again, that depends on the quiz game, but I hope that answers that a little better.
Yes, and Adrian, that picture word is so big, especially for our ESOL kids and kids who are learning the English language. The pictures sometimes, especially with our Southern words, may not always look or be what the kids are envisioning whenever we say it, and especially in types of like figurative language. So sometimes explaining it and adding a picture is very helpful for those kids to actually see what you're talking about. Michael, I'm so glad that the quizzes works out for you. All right, well, that brings us to the end. We just want to say thank you. Is it over there? Countdown. Let us go back to our screen. There we go. Just keep doing your best. Teaching is such a rewarding career. We love it. I know that this past year has been very different, but we made it. And it was successful, and that's all that matters. Our babies were learning. So thank you all. I know Miss Coleman will get this out to you, and if y'all have any more questions, please reach out to us. We are more than happy to help you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Danielle and Jonathan. I really appreciate it. This was a great training. And now it is time for what I think some of you all have been waiting for, at least I hope you have, which is our prize time. So we have 3 lucky winners, and these 3 winners, the first one is Jennifer Lukens, who is a science and social studies teacher at Hayhire Elementary School. Congratulations. Our second winner is Michael Novak, who is a science teacher at Cook High School. And Destiny Pratt, who is a music education teacher candidate. So congratulations to you all, and thank everyone for attending this training.
And also, everyone, I am about to post the link to the next session into the chat. So there it is now. Sorry about that delay. And so you're welcome to just click on that link or go back to my email and click there as well. So thank you everyone again, and we will see you shortly maybe.